Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is transitions. And that's Maggie chiming in case you haven't met her. And before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to settle in and get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing every cell and every organ, bringing vital life energy throughout your body and being. And as you exhale any tension or stress, fatigue, negativity. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your electrons, all your molecules, lighting your cells up from the inside out to create a beautiful glow out into the world. And as you exhale any tension, any stress, any remaining fatigue or negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Very, very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel how delicious that tickling and tingling is, the sensation, and presence yourself to the miracle of all of our senses and our ability to experience the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to be here again with you. It is a Monday. It's a whole new week. And today's topic is transitions and how even the most radical of transitions can be accomplished through incremental steps. Good morning, Rosalind. Wonderful to see you, and happy Monday to you too. So we're talking about transitions and how uh, even the most dramatic changes can occur when we approach them incrementally. And I think that this is an interesting example of how different people approach things when going to go for a swim. Some people will dip in a toe and and wade in slowly. Other people will just dive right in it just to get it over with, to get in there. And the people that dive right in have have obviously a capacity to weather shock and in some degree or another. However, that there are many instances in life other than getting into the water, for example, that call upon us to take things gradually, to to ease into something so that we become acclimated with it. Sometimes I'm thinking of another situation where people talk about addiction or clearing, for instance, from smoking addiction, or stopping smoking. Some people will gradually make that transition to reduce their smoking, and other people will just go cold turkey. And good morning. Great to have you here. We're talking about transitions. And, like with habits, it's interesting because at one point, I confess, I was smoking cigarettes for a while, and I decided to quit. And what precipitated, what empowered me to quit at that time was an advertisement that I heard on the radio in my car one day when I was driving. And it was Yul Brynner, who was a famous actor. And people know him from many things, but one of the things that he performed in was The King and I. And he was this very iconic figure who ended up dying of lung cancer. And he, in the ad, he said something to the effect of, "You're hearing this because I'm dead. And I implore you to stop. If you're smoking, stop smoking." And I decided in that moment to allow myself to make that choice to stop, and I did. And at the same time, other people find that it's more effective to approach that transition gradually. So, for instance, with veganism, as an example, people will often start off by increasing their plant-based meals. And then as they increase their plant-based meals, maybe they're decreasing their meat-based meals, and then maybe they go lacto-ovo vegetarian, having eggs and dairy, and then slowly they cut out eggs and dairy. And so it's a transition where you're easing yourself into a new lifestyle, a new pattern. And it's interesting to me to recognize moments when gradual transition is um, more effective for me, and where radical transition is more effective. I'm not sure what distinguishes the two. Um, Perhaps, even with a routine practice, rather than saying I'm going to go to the gym every day, maybe I could start out by saying I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, and or once a week even, and then up it as I become more acclimated to it. So I'm wondering, for you, what kinds of patterns work best for you? This kind of came to mind for me because over the weekend, a family member passed, and it was somewhat sudden, and the the remaining family member, their spouse, was kind of in shock, and the person who passed had decided that they wanted to be cremated, and the person that was remaining was just feeling really overwhelmed and pressured to be making decisions about services and ceremonies. And we had this conversation to say, well, particularly with a cremation, there's time. There's more time to get your feet on the ground, to become present, to then call in the family support a um, of a ceremony, of a memorial, to be able to celebrate that person rather than rushing it all into a time frame when there's so much overwhelm of emotion and things to take care of, to be able to create a transition into a new phase of life, and to ease that by taking slower steps. And I wonder what that's like for you, with transitions. I notice, um, well, I'm thinking, for instance, of people who win the lottery. Here's a radical transition that shifts their whole life context in a radical way. And they don't have the grace, the time, um, to acclimate to really having that abundance. And as a result, people often end up divesting themselves of that money very quickly, and not having the opportunity to parlay it into the new life that it gave an opportunity for. And so it's interesting, if you were to be building wealth over time and preparing for that, and and learning to manage finances, and uh, it can be a much more enriching and life affirming type process, even though we want things yesterday, right? Even though we want everything to be now, immediate. Sometimes it's not the best thing. Um, and going through, so decluttering, maybe we do that gradually. Or we could go on a rampage and just have somebody come in and clear things out. I'm wondering if there's circumstances where each of us are more inclined to one avenue than the other, where it's more, where I'm gonna just do something radical, do it all now, or do it gradually. Because the truth is that change, even positive change, is disruptive and disorienting. And I have seen people go through radical changes very fast, and I've seen that in myself even. And then the consequences are having to having to heal from that, having to recover from the upheaval that kind of leaves your head spinning. So when, by doing things gradually, by taking time, by being present, uh, we allow ourselves to calibrate to the transition. Welcome, Pat. Good afternoon to you. Wonderful to have you here on this Monday. We're talking about transitions and how making gradual incremental changes over time can support us in moving through radical change. And I believe that in our lives we do experience lots of change, and sometimes it happens so slowly that that it seems imperceptible. But in fact, when we look back, when we've gone to the other side of the change, Maggie, no, Maggie is eating the plant again. Come on, Maggie, come here, baby, come say hi. Maggie, come on, Maggie. She's not paying attention here. So Rosalind says, making a transition to declutter. The HGTV show lady, Mary, yes, I forget, I don't think it's KUNDO, but anyway, it starts with the closet, maybe because someone has to get dressed every day to start the morning. It's Kondo, Marie Kondo. Yes. Seeing the change will help propel the momentum to declutter the next space. I didn't know that she started with the closet, but that's what I've done periodically. Yes, Rosalind, please tell her to stop eating the plant. It's so crazy to have to every morning, just chase her down to get her to stop. But she's a bird. Anyway, So this transitioning, you know, is to start with something, to get into action, or we also can be, I'm thinking about the changes that occur in our lives over time, how we can look back at portions of our lives and feel like it was another lifetime, like it was another person, that we don't relate to the challenges and the experiences of that person anymore. We know them as part of our history, but because they occurred over time, we're not as conscious, we're not as connected, we're not as attached as we had been, to the patterns, behaviors, thoughts, emotions, experiences from that portion of our lives. It becomes a distant whisper of a recollection in a way, or a reflection of a representation rather than the thing itself, where we don't even feel the feelings that we felt in that moment, you know, or for years in the course of processing those issues. Once we've made a transition, uh, when it's complete, and it's almost as if it's almost as if it was another person's life, you know, that we're in such a different place that it's kind of inconceivable that we had that experience. So I'm wondering, for you, what kinds of transitions work for you? The incremental transitions where you do things a bit at a time, or for the most part, more immersive experiences that are super focused and kind of once and done, or not, maybe not once and done, but done intensively and then recover, and then intensively and then recover. What is your modality? I find that, in fact, I think that this is a personality style. I find that I tend to work best under deadlines, where I create the urgency, and I believe I've read that that's a certain personality style. When there's a sense of urgency to do something, then I can get myself in action. But without that urgency, it's kind of, things just can poke along, and I can avoid doing the things that I don't want to do, without the urgency. Although when there's the urgency, that can create stress, etc. So uh, part of this conversation, I guess, is also talking about our resistance. Maggie, no. Maggie, come here. Come on. Good girl. Good girl. She actually left the plant and she flew over close by. I don't think you can see her, but she's on top of the bricks. There she is. Anyway, transitions. What I look at my life and I recognize that I have had both patterns of transition. The radical transition where it's kind of diving in and um, then recovering, or figuring out how to calibrate to that diving in. And then there are other times when I notice that I have eased my way into something, that I've allowed it to be kind of an organic evolution. And that's really what happened with me. Maggie, no. Maggie, come on. Come on. Good girl. She's making loops around the room, flying. Where with with vegetarianism and veganism, that has been a gradual kind of transition for me. I think at one point I just stopped eating meat, but then I was eating eggs and dairy, and I go back and forth. But it's gradual, and it's been incorporating new patterns and new foods, and creating a kind of a gradual transformation. And so I think that change can be tremendously stressful. And even when it's positive, as I said. And the question is, how do we, when we have the choice for change, how do we manage it? You know, certain changes are imposed on us from from circumstance, or most particularly when there is an illness or a death. There are things that happen suddenly, and part of the challenge of dealing with those things is that we haven't had time to acclimate. It can still come as a shock when someone dies, even though they may have been very sick. But there's some transition point. There's some foundation to be able to metabolize that change. And I think that is actually key, to be talking about metabolizing change, where we're actually incorporating our experience of that change in our bodies, where we're manifesting it we're grounding it in our experience and our being. And I I know that all of us, just by the nature of life, have experienced some changes that were very radical, that maybe it took a while to recover from. Even a positive move. Let's say you're moving to a new place. Uh, that can be pretty radical, right? Because all your stuff is now packed up in a new place, where you get to unpack and get familiar with everything that's new. It's disruptive, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all, because it gives us an opportunity to recreate ourselves, right? Um, and as we're recreating ourselves, there's the disorientation of that transition. And um, I think that it can register as stress, even though we might be really happy about it. We might also at the same time be feeling sadness for where we left, and we might be feeling overwhelmed for all that needs to be done in the new environment. And we might go into overdrive to accomplish it, and then afterwards there's the letdown, and the time to get reoriented. And some of us weather that better. Some of us thrive on these upheavals and change, and get bored in life, and therefore create opportunities for transition and even drama. But what do you think? What is it like for you? Um, I think that the decluttering thing is a really interesting thing. I have not been successful in doing it incrementally, I can say, because to your comment, Rosalind, I have uh, started with closets, but it hasn't led me to go beyond, or even to the next closet. So I'm looking at strategies that are going to support in that arena. Again, I don't know if I could even manufacture a deadline that I would believe uh, to motivate me to do the decluttering that I really truly would like to have done or be done with. But yeah, so transitions and creating gradual transitions for ourselves, I think, can be very life supporting, as I described with this relative who is in a state of shock after the loss of their spouse, and um, really deserves the grace to be able to make a gradual transition. Rosalind says, losing a loved one suddenly versus slowly due to a disease. I can't imagine losing someone suddenly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so this person that passed, thank you for that, Rosalind. This person that passed was ill, very ill, but the death was still unexpected to be so soon. And even that, where there are indicators, where there's some expectation, even then, it can be such a shock. And I think that giving ourselves grace to metabolize change is a very important and valuable gift when we can give it to ourselves. And gradual change doesn't, it probably, gradual change has a different pace for everybody. So people bounce back at different rates. People have different levels of resiliency. And the more whole we feel, the more complete we feel, the typically the greater our resilience, the quicker we're able to recover from shock, from change, from situational circumstance. But we also institute change for ourselves. And it's interesting to recognize our our predispositions and what's going to best support us. So maybe you're a dive in person, but then you need recovery time. Uh, that's good to know so that you can create the space for that recovery afterwards. Um, Dennis says, I have just within the last week decluttered and removed and trashed over 20 years of stuff from my basement. A great feeling of evacuation, I must say. My heavens, Dennis, in a week, congratulations. Wow. So you just dove in and did it, right? You just said, okay, this is it. That's what I'm doing this week. Everything else out the window. And you just did it. Good for you. Power to you. So I'm wondering, are you now feeling exhausted and need to recover, or are you invigorated? I see that you say a great feeling of evacuation, I would imagine. Um, and and I wonder, how did you work up to that momentum to actually get yourself to go and just do it? Good for you. That's amazing. So uh, I think that we will call it a morning. But I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who are here and joining us. And even if you're not commenting, or for some reason I don't see your comments, it's wonderful to have you be joining us. Elaine, hello, hello. Elaine says all transitions give an opportunity to reflect. Yes, it's natural to shut down and reflect. True wisdom and love for self. So I agree. All transitions give us an opportunity to reflect. And it is so important to take the time to take advantage of that reflection period and to revitalize ourselves. So on that note, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And Maggie and I go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. It is such a privilege to be with you. So much love. Until next time.